Okay, so let's look at the calendar. It is Tuesday, February 17, 2026. And if you're just, scrolling the headlines this morning, you're probably seeing two very, very different stories.
Right. It's the classic split screen moment in geopolitics.
Exactly. So on one side of your screen, you've got Geneva. It's quiet. It's bureaucratic. You picture diplomats in suits, shuffling papers, trying to hammer out some kind of deal. It looks, well, honestly, it looks kind of boring.
And then on the other side of that screen, you've got the Arabian Sea. And it is anything but quiet out there. Satellite imagery just confirmed a military buildup that, well, massive doesn't quite seem to cover it.
Unprecedented is getting closer. So our mission today on this Deep Dive is to connect those two things, to connect the handshake in Geneva to the clenched fist off the coast of Iran. Because you really can't understand one without the other.
We're not just looking at ships today. We are looking at leverage. We're looking at how 100,000 tons of steel can influence a quiet conversation happening 4,000 miles away.
And to do this right, we've pulled a pretty serious stack of intel for you. We've got analysis from BBC Verify on the latest satellite imagery, which gives us visual confirmation. We have official statements from the Pentagon on force posture. And we have diplomatic cables on the summit happening right now.
And there's a timeline. There's a literal countdown clock ticking in the background of all of this. And it started the moment one specific ship left the Caribbean.
The USS Gerald R. Ford. Oh, yeah, we're definitely getting to that. That's the real game changer. But let's start with what's happening right now. Let's zoom in on that BBC Verify data. As of yesterday, February 16, what are we actually looking at?
So if you look at the imagery, the centerpiece is the USS Abraham Lincoln. It's positioned about 700 kilometers off the coast of Iran, roughly near Oman.
700 kilometers. Okay, So in naval terms, is that like parked on the front lawn or is that watching from down the street?
I'd say it's a comfortable striking distance. It's like a boxer standing just outside of jab range, but he's ready to step in with a cross. Close enough to launch air missions without needing a ton of refueling, but far enough out to have some breathing room from shore-based missiles.
A threatening posture, but a defensible one.
Not exactly.
But the Lincoln isn't just out there by itself, right?
Sure.
A carrier never travels solo.
Never. The carrier's the queen on the chessboard. You leave the queen exposed, you lose the game. The Lincoln is flanked by 3 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, and the carrier deck itself is just loaded with F-35s.
Okay, hold on. Arleigh Burke class. We hear that term a lot. For anyone listening who doesn't, read defense journals, why is that specific ship so important here?
That's a great question. The Arleigh Burke is basically the Swiss Army knife of the ocean. It does a bit of everything, but its main job here is defense. These ships have the Aegis combat system. Think of it like a super advanced radar and computer brain that can track hundreds of targets at once.
Missiles, jets, drones.
All of it. And then guide its own missiles to intercept them.
So it's the shield for the carrier.
It's the shield, but it's also a spear. And this is where the numbers start to get a little scary. When you look at the broader region, not just the Lincoln's group, but everything in position right now, there are approximately 15 of these destroyers.
15. That seems like a lot.
It's saturation. I mean, when you actually do the math on their launch systems, analysts are estimating a total capacity of over 600 Tomahawk cruise missiles ready to go.
600.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack that. 600 Tomahawks. How does that compare to, say, the start of other major conflicts?
It's huge. For context, the opening night of the Iraq invasion in 2003, the Shock and Awe campaign,
right,
that involved maybe 300 to 400 Tomahawks. We have nearly double that capacity just sitting in the water right now waiting for an order.
So we have 2 Shock and Awe's just idling off the coast.
Effectively, yeah. And the reports we're seeing say they aren't just sitting there. They're running drills around the clock.
I saw that in the Pentagon notes. But aren't drills pretty standard?
They are, but it's the type of drills they're running that's telling. They're not just practicing flight operations. They're specifically drilling for mass casualty response and damage control.
Mass casualty response.
Exactly. They are simulating fires on the flight deck, treating mass burns, patching holes in the hull while under attack. You don't practice that intensity if you're just there to show the flag. You practice that if you genuinely think you might get hit back.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
It moves this from just posturing to actual preparation for a fight.
Precisely. And analysts point out that this mix of ships includes destroyers specifically configured for ballistic missile defense. They're expecting a rain of fire from Iran if this goes south. They're building a wall in the sky.
So we have the Lincoln, a floating city of war, with the strongest shield the Navy can build. But here's where it gets really interesting, or I guess terrifying. This isn't enough for the White House.
No. President Trump wants to tighten the screws. He feels the current pressure isn't working.
So he orders the USS Gerald R. Ford to join the party. Now, I know the Ford is the newest, the biggest.
Yeah.
But is it really that different from the Lincoln? Isn't a carrier a carrier?
Oh, it's a generational leap. The Lincoln is a Nimitz-class carrier, which is, tech designed in the 70s. The Ford is the future. The biggest difference is something called EMALS, the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System.
Instead of the old steam catapult.
Right. Steam is messy, it takes time to recharge, it puts a lot of stress on the planes. EMALS uses massive magnets like a railgun to just fling jets off the deck.
Yeah.
It's smoother, less wear and tear, but most importantly, it's faster.
Faster means more planes in the air at once.
Exactly. It all comes down to what they call the sortie generation rate. That's the metric that wins wars. The Ford can launch about 30% more flights per day than the Lincoln, and that means 30% more bombs, 30% more patrols. Bringing in the Ford isn't just adding a ship, it's adding a hyper-efficient war machine.
And it creates that twin carrier presence.
Which is rare.
How rare are we talking?
Very rare. I mean, U.S. naval doctrine usually keeps carriers spread out across the globe. Putting two in the same theater side by side is a massive commitment of resources. It leaves other places exposed. It's almost always a sign that you're preparing for a major, sustained conflict, or you're trying to scare someone half to death.
But there's a catch. The Ford isn't there yet.
And that's the ticking clock. The Ford was operating in the Caribbean, actually, against Venezuela, so it has to cross the Atlantic, get through the Mediterranean, transit the Suez Canal.
It's a long trip.
Reports say it'll take 3 to 4 weeks to get on station.
3 to 4 weeks. So we have a window, a very specific, finite window of time.
We do, and that window dictates the pace of everything happening in Geneva. The U.S. isn't just positioning ships, they're building a timeline. If these talks fail, the arrival of the Ford in mid-March could be the trigger.
And the Pentagon's not downplaying it. They told Reuters they are preparing for, and I'm quoting here, potentially multi-week operations.
That phrase, multi-week operations, that jumped out at me too. That's not a punitive strike, that's a campaign. They're planning to systematically degrade Iran's military.
Okay, so keep that image in your mind. The Lincoln, weapons hot. The Ford, steaming across the ocean. Now let's cut to the other side of the split screen. Geneva. The quiet room.
The diplomatic dance.
Talks are starting today. And they're indirect talks. Why are they in the same city, but not even in the same room?
It's all about optics and domestic politics. For the Iranians, sitting face-to-face with the great Satan, especially this administration, is seen as weakness back home. It gives ammunition to hardliners. So you have U.S. officials in one hotel, Iranian officials in another, and diplomats running messages back and forth.
Sounds inefficient.
It is. It's slow. It's prone to misunderstanding. You lose all the nuance of a real conversation. But it's the only way they can talk right now without causing a political firestorm in Tehran.
The Iranian delegation is led by Foreign Minister Abbas Araki. What's his deal? Is he a hardliner? A moderate?
He's a veteran diplomat. He's deeply involved in the original 2015 nuclear deal. So he's considered a pragmatist, by Iranian standards, someone who knows how to negotiate with the West. But, and this is the big but, he doesn't have the final say.
The supreme leader does.
Khamenei holds all the keys. Araki is the messenger. And looking at the demands the U.S. has put on the table, the message he has to deliver back home is not going to be good.
So let's look at those demands. This isn't just about nukes anymore, is it?
Not at all. The U.S. has expanded the scope way beyond that. They want Iran to surrender its enriched uranium, halt all nuclear development, that's the standard stuff. But they also want them to stop all support for proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis.
Which is asking them to just dismantle their entire foreign policy.
Pretty much. But the real sticking point, the one red line causing all this friction, is the demand to curtail Iran's ballistic missile program.
And that's where everything just grinds to a halt. Why are the missiles so important to them? I mean, if they give up the nukes, why do they even need the long-range missiles?
This is the key to understanding the Iranian mindset. You have to look at their conventional military. Their air force. It's ancient. They're flying F-14s from the Top Gun era, literally from before the 1979 revolution.
Wow.
Yeah, they'd get wiped out of the sky in 10 minutes against F-35s. So the missiles are their substitute.
They're determinate.
It's their only way to project power. They can't fly bombers over Riyadh, but they can fire missiles. For Tehran, their missile arsenal is a life insurance policy. If they give that up, they feel completely defenseless. So they've declared it non-negotiable.
I saw Arachi posted on X as he arrived in Geneva. He said, I am in Geneva with real ideas for achieving a fair and equitable agreement. What is not on the table? Submission to threats.
Submission to threats. He's talking directly to the armada we just described. He's saying, we see your ships and we aren't blinking.
And that brings us to the psychology of this. Because if the Iranians are talking tough, President Trump is.
Being Trump. To put it mildly.
The rhetoric is designed to amplify the threat. He keeps using the word armada.
It's a very evocative word. Historical. It summons images of a massive invasion force. It's not a word you use for a peacekeeping mission. It implies total defeat.
And he told Axios, either we'll make a deal, or we'll have to take decisive action like we did before.
And like we did before is a direct reference to the U.S. strikes on their nuclear sites back in June of 2025.
So he's reminding them he's pulled the trigger once already. He wants them to believe he is not bluffing this time.
Right, he's trying to establish credibility.
But then he goes to Fort Bragg on February 13, and he says something that probably made every diplomat in Geneva just choke.
The regime change comment.
Yeah. He's talking to the troops who would actually have to fight this war, and he says, referring to regime change in Iran, it would be the best thing that could happen. Then he adds, for 47 years, they've been talking and talking.
That signals this deep frustration with the whole diplomatic process. It suggests he sees these talks not as a compromise, but as a final box to check before he takes action.
Does that work, though? Does telling a regime, I want you gone, makes them more likely to cut a deal with you?
Historically, absolutely not. Usually, it makes them dig in their heels. It confirms their deepest fear that the missiles are the only thing keeping them in power. I mean, if you tell someone, I want to kick you out of your house, they aren't going to hand over their shotgun. They're going to load it.
And Iran is counter-signaling just as hard. The day before these talks, February 16, the IRGC conducted their own military exercises.
In the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point for a huge amount of the world's oil.
That's their leverage.
It's the suicide vest of the global economy. They're reminding the world, if you hit us, we can shut this down. We can spike oil prices to $200 a barrel and crash your markets.
Supreme Leader Khamenei warned a U.S. attack could escalate into a regional war.
So everyone is showing their teeth. The U.S. with the ships, Iran with the Strait.
It's a game of chicken, but played with nuclear-capable nations.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this for everyone listening. If you strip it all away, what is the picture right now? The picture is a deadlock with a burning fuse. You have a massive naval force in place. You have an even bigger force 3 weeks away. And you have diplomacy that is completely stuck on the issue of ballistic missiles.
The U.S. says, give up the missiles or else. And Iran says, if we give up the missiles, you'll hit us anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is what analysts are calling high-risk diplomacy. The military buildup isn't plan B. It is the negotiation. The administration is betting that if they put enough firepower on the horizon, Iran will finally crack.
But what if they don't?
Then you have a twin-carrier strike force sitting off the coast of a country you've just threatened with regime change, led by a president who is tired of talking. I mean, that's a recipe for war. It creates a situation where backing down looks like a humiliation for either side.
Which brings us to the so what. Why should you, listening right now, care about a ship leaving the Caribbean?
It matters because we're in a transition. We're moving from posturing to action. The movement of the Ford changes the entire geometry of the situation. It's not just another ship. It represents a deadline.
That is a provocative thought to end on. I want you to just think about that timeline. The USS Gerald R. Ford takes 3 to 4 weeks to get there.
Right.
So, does that mean we have a 3-week diplomatic window? Is the arrival of that ship the moment the prolonged campaign begins?
It's very possible. If you are watching this, don't just watch the headlines, watch the calendar. When the Ford arrives, the clock may just hit 0.
Watch the calendar. We'll certainly be watching it for you. Thanks for diving in with us.
Stay informed.
See you next time.